Reporter Olivia Rubin is following the latest for us now. Olivia, we know we heard authorities to say earlier today they don't have a motive yet, but they have started their investigation. However, the FBI director, Kash Patel, is pretty clear. He's saying the shooting is being investigated as domestic terrorism and a hate crime targeting Catholics. So what more do we know, Olivia?
Well, Kana, there seems to be a bit of a discrepancy here between federal law enforcement and local law enforcement. As you said, Kash Patel was quite clear that this was a hate crime targeting Catholics. But at the local level, we've heard all day from the police chief, the Minneapolis PD chief there, who was asked specifically about this, whether it was a hate crime. And he wouldn't say that it was. They were very clear on the ground there that they don't yet know what the motive is for this attack, and therefore it would be too early to call it a hate crime. So clearly a bit of a disagreement here between at the federal level and at the local level in terms of motive. There is a couple angles they have sort of indicated that they are looking into here, specifically any connection to the church. Of course, there have been reports that there was some sort of connection, but again, law enforcement officials not yet ready to go there yet, saying it's something they are looking at, but that they cannot confirm. Of course, there's also the social media writings, the YouTube writings that they discussed, that YouTube video that was posted online full of that hateful rhetoric, drawings of guns, drawings, Kana, of a church with pews that it sort of shows exactly that this shooter knew what they were going to do. They are saying, though, that as of this stage, they do believe this shooter was acting alone. Kana, take a listen.
At this stage, we believe that the shooter had acted alone. There is no indication of other suspects directly involved in carrying out this attack. Our investigators are working with other agencies in the process of executing 4 search warrants. One is for the church itself, where this crime occurred. The other 3 are residences nearby in the metro that are related to this shooter.
They did go on to add, Kana, that they recovered multiple other firearms from those locations on top of the 3 that we already know the shooter was armed with when they went to this church this morning, Kana.
Right. They described him as being armed with a rifle, a shotgun, and a pistol that were all lawfully purchased, and noting that they were purchased recently there, Olivia. And it's interesting when you look into this YouTube post. Let's dig into that a bit, because a couple things stand out to us, obviously. The fact that authorities say that it was timed. It had a timed release. And so now they're going into that post, as well as how you heard from Aaron Katursky kind of describing what was written on some of this weaponry in that post, Olivia.
Definitely, and that all indicates that this was something that was significantly planned, Kana. We've also heard a lot about how this sort of showed a fascination with other school shooters. One of the things sources said was written in that notebook was the name of a band that the Columbine shooters had been obsessed with themselves. That band, of course, has denounced previously any sort of violence, but certainly we're getting the portrait of an individual that was having some sort of fascination with other school shooters, and was so, I guess, deeply familiar with them that they knew the band that they also, in Columbine, had admired, which is sort of a sick level of detail for this individual to know. So certainly it's the YouTube aspects, as we've heard there. It's the different homes that are being searched. It's the social media accounts. And certainly you'd have to think that they're talking to family, friends, neighbors, colleagues, former students, anyone that knows this individual. You know, we on the investigative team have dug into school shooters and suspected mass shooters for years. I have done this work myself, tracing the origins of an individual like this and what drives them. Oftentimes when I've spoken to suspects' previous family members and fellow students and classmates, a lot of times they don't know. And this is something that happens quietly. You know, I've heard individuals individuals described as likable but quiet and sort of lost touch with them. So again, the work that we do in investigating these individuals is quite similar to the work that law enforcement officials do, and it's all but likely that right now they are trying to find anyone who knew this suspect, who had recently spoken to this individual, to say why was this person drawn to open fire at children inside of a church, Kana.
Inside of a church, what red flags were possibly missed? Olivia Rubin, our thanks to you.